What's up, guys? Welcome back to our channel.
Today we're reading 7 creepy and true stories about the Ouija board. We got these stories from Reddit and some other places, and the last one we know for a fact is true because we know the person it happened to. So let's jump right into it. My great aunt had never married, and when I asked why, my dad told me the story. Apparently, when she was 16, she had a pretty serious boyfriend. When she used a Ouija board, she asked if they would get married, and it said no. She asked if they would break up.
No.
Asked if one of them would die, and it said
Yes.
And when she asked which one of them, it said
Goodbye.
A week later, he was in a wood chipper accident at the mill where he worked. My girlfriend told me this story about an experience she had with an Ouija board while in high school sometime in 1986. She had a friend named Johnny who was suffering from CF or some other debilitating illness, who had recently been hospitalized as a result. Both she and her friend Shelley visited Johnny regularly in the hopes of keeping his spirits up and for a quick recovery. One night after visiting Johnny, they were at Shelley's when they decided to try out an Ouija board. After a while, they started communicating with a spirit who seemed to know a lot about them that it really shouldn't. After some banal questions about boys and general questions one would expect teenage girls to ask, my girlfriend decided to ask about Johnny and his condition. The board quickly spelled out,
24th June, 1987. Johnny won't have to worry anymore.
And went to
Goodbye.
My girlfriend and Shelley were so convinced that board was giving them a date for recovery that they actually wrote the message down and sealed it in an envelope. The following year, on 24th June, it turned out that Johnny indeed no longer needed to worry about his condition. It was the day he died. Abby was in her room one night after playing with an Ouija board earlier that day. As she was getting ready for bed, her computer screen changed from black to blue. It had turned on by itself. She turned the computer off again. The computer clicked itself back to life. Anxious, Abby unplugged the computer completely, and then the unpowered computer started back up again. She buried the Ouija board in her backyard that same night.
In 2014, 3 friends visiting family in Mexico decided to play with a Ouija board. Within minutes, the 3 began to report feeling dizzy, upset, and confused, and events quickly escalated. The young girl began to growl and thrash around, and the boys were also overcome. They reported symptoms including paralysis, blindness, and hallucinations. Terrified, the girl's parents ran to a local church and begged the priest to return with them and perform an exorcism, a not uncommon request from parishioners. But the priest refused because the young people did not attend church, and the family rushed home to call paramedics. The local safety officer reported that when emergency workers arrived, the patients were in trance-like states, flailing around and suffering from muscle spasms, and making it necessary to restrain the victims. The friends were transported to a local hospital where they were given painkillers and other treatment and finally released.
A few years ago, my friends decided to try this out with a group of guys. We were in the 12th grade at the time. My group of girls had messed around with an Ouija board before, to varying degrees of success. Well, this time, it was my hands on the planchette with my other girlfriend. This thing was moving crazy fast. Faster than I had ever seen, and it seemed to be getting quite agitated by the group of guys we were with, who were joking around and not taking it seriously. It essentially told them to shut up and stop talking. I told the guys, seriously, please stop being rude, I'm kind of freaked out. Because I was getting nervous, one of the guys took over. He was a bit more serious about it. Almost immediately, the thing spelled out,
"Don't open the door."
well, we were all in the basement, and there was only one door, so we all kind of looked over at it nervously. Because I was getting anxious, I took the blanket and kind of hid my face. Immediately, it spelled out,
"Don't hide from me."
Everyone was freaked out. The guy who had his hands on the planchette literally started crying. He wanted to take his hands off, but we have this rule that you don't take your hands off until you get to say goodbye. Everyone wanted to stop, but it took about 10 minutes of asking dumb questions until the thing finally slid.
"Goodbye."
Some of the guys speculated afterwards that it meant don't open the metaphorical door of the spiritual world. The reason being is we told them to never ask for a sign, or else it kind of lets the spirit roam free outside of the board. Before that guy took over, they kept asking for a sign, only for me to cut them off mid-sentence and tell them to knock it off. So this made some sense.
Me and my friends made our own Ouija board on a flat piece of wood, smooth like particle board, and made the planchette out of some cardboard. We took it up to the forest by my parents' house because who wants to risk haunting their own house? We couldn't get the board to say anything that made sense, but what was weird was when we start a session, the frogs in the forest would get quiet. When we stop the session, they resume croaking. At first, I thought it was just our talking that made them quiet. But we, of course, made other conversations to test the theory, and the frogs would quit saying words. Definitely odd and hard to explain.
In the month of March, me and some friends of mine went to a party one night and decided to take an Ouija board with us. I was pregnant at the time, so I just went to the party to be the designated driver. Well, as the night went on, they got out the Ouija board and started asking it questions about my unborn child. The questions asked were the sex of my child and when my child would be born. The Ouija board revealed
"No child in August 26th."
Then they asked how much my child would weigh and how long my child would be. And the board revealed
8 pounds 12 ounces and 21 inches long.
They proceeded asking the Ouija board other questions, and the board seemed to get agitated, and they removed their hands without saying goodbye. The planchette flew across the room and stuck in the wall. At that point, I was screaming to go home. Well, of course, the guys that were there after we left said they tore the board into 4 pieces and took it outside and buried it. The next day, when they awoke, the board had adhered itself back together and was stuck in the window. I forgot all about the Ouija board and everything that happened that night until on August 26th. I gave birth to my male child, and he weighed 8 pounds 12 ounces and was 21 inches long, just as the Ouija board revealed. My son was also very sick. When he was born, he breathed amniotic fluid and developed pneumonia and almost died. I begged God that night to forgive us for messing with that Ouija board. The next day, my baby boy was starting to improve. I will no longer touch or play the Ouija board ever again.
Well, those stories were pretty creepy.
Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and turn on those post notifications to get notified when we upload every Friday.
We'll see you next Friday for some more stories.
Peace.